Hey, what's up guys? My name is John Silva. Today we're going to talk about clean lines, what to avoid, what should you be looking for, and tips. Now on my first panel here, I have identifying strokes. This is very important when you're looking at an image or you're even at your own work. You should be able to identify what kind of lines you're doing, right? Here we have three examples. And only one of these is really not recommended, which is the messy one, the very first one on the left. And that's only because it's very chaotic, it's, in my opinion, ugly, and brushstrokes go all over the place. It's just not good looking, right? Now, in the middle, we have neat. I actually like this out of all three. It has character. You can still see where the brushstroke started and where the brushstroke ended, but it looks uniform. It looks neat, right? And then we have the, your good old clean line art here where you just do one swoop and then you have a clean line after 100 times trying. So those are three types of lines to identify, and then next up we have what to avoid. A million tiny strokes, exactly. So when we start doing line art by nature, due to our insecurities and lack of training, we try to do these tiny little brush strokes to make one brush stroke, right? But it looks like it's all scratched in and doesn't really look good, in my opinion. And to avoid that, honestly, it's practice. Like, a lot of this stuff is just practice. Instead of trying to do tiny million strokes, you try to go for one longer, even if it's wrong, even if it looks wobbly. One wobbly line is better than 50 of them like scratched in there, you know. So next up we have what to avoid. Number 2, stroke length inconsistency. Now this is not very important. I mean, it is important, but as a beginner it's something you should look for, but it's okay to commit this problem. Now, it looks definitely better than a million tiny strokes, but if you want to make it even further cleaner, try to go for each stroke that you do, each length, each time you go for to make a brush stroke, try to make the length the same. The time you spend doing one line, try to do exactly with the same line, and the third, and so on. Of course, you want to make them look like they're connected and there's one flow, just one flowy line going around. Now, what to avoid. Number 3, shakiness. It comes with practice. Now, just like I was saying, everything you do obviously comes with practice, and the shakiness, actually, it's okay. There's no problem. There's no real problem with having a shaky line. It still looks cleaner than the two options before. It's just that the strength you put on with the pencil or pen or whatever you're using, and the stability of when you're drawing, it needs to be practiced. Simply, your hand, you just keep doing lines, keep doing circles until they start looking less and less shaky. Now, what to go for. Number 1, continuous looking strokes. Now, when I say continuous looking strokes, I mean that every time you do a brush stroke, doesn't actually have to be the same length, doesn't actually have to be uniform looking, as long you connect them, which is gonna lead me to the next point. Part 2, continuous looking strokes. where I make one brushstroke, this S kind of brushstroke, and then I make brushstroke that looks something like a skewed tree, right? So that plus that equals this kind of shape looking, which is gonna look like the side of the skull here. Now you can use one, you can use three, two or three, four, as many brush strokes as you need, as long as you connect them in a way that it looks like one brush stroke, you're good to go. Now what to go for number 3? Yeah. Practice hand control. This is kind of obvious, but I had to include this because you're gonna hate it first. It's gonna look bad. It's gonna look wobbly, hatchy, sketchy. It's gonna look bad. So keep practicing for a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, a year, 2 years. You get it, right? At the beginning, I was doing lines probably even worse than the first one. Probably no, most likely even worse than the first ones. But as I keep practicing and practicing and practicing, it keeps getting better, better and better. You know, the first one is very shaky and there's no control at all. The second one is less shaky, more flowy, but there's no line kind of thickness. The second one, there's a little bit of thickness going on with the better flow, but not the best yet. As you can see, like it goes from thin and then the line grows thicker and then it thins out at the end a little bit. And the last one is kind of like the best out of these, where there's more motion, more flowy motion to the line art and going from thin to thick and back to thin quite nicely. Let's see. Tip here. Oh yeah, okay. Tip, use 2 layers. Now, when I begin to sketch for professional work, and even sometimes for myself, I'll always have at least 2 sketches. Now, sketch number 1 is my sketch layer. Layer number 1 is my sketch layer. That sketch layer, what does it include? This layer is not for line art that is clean, accurate. The drawing is not 100% accurate. No. What you want with the sketch layer is you want to put down what you're looking for, right? What subject? Well, what are you gonna draw? You know, how are you gonna draw it? What's the perspective? What's the the composition? Anything that you're gonna put in doesn't have to be super accurate. It doesn't have to be accurate very much. A little bit of accuracy goes a long way, of course, but you don't worry too much about it, because here in the middle, a clean sketch over the sketch layer. Now, once I'm done with the sketch layer, once I figure out what I want, I'll make a new layer and I'll make the older layer, the sketch layer, opacity lower. So it's gonna show a little bit underneath, if you can see here in darker orange, but you're not quite able to see everything once you start drawing on the new layer. So I start drawing over, and when I do that, there's the moment where I have to ignore a little bit the sketch layer and draw what's actually accurate and nice looking with the nice lines, and the drawing itself has to be accurate and good looking. This is very important it's a very important step to do, because once I turn off my sketch layer, I'm only left with the clean line. One thing I want to mention though is that I don't hear many people say this, but once you try this kind of method, and if you try it, I'm pretty sure you found it hard to kind of ignore the underlying layer. And that's something, again, with practice, you just have to keep telling yourself, just ignore what's underneath and try to draw, use it as a map, but not perfectly trace it, because you're going to have the same mistakes again, right? So definitely keep at it, keep practicing. You're going to get better at ignoring what's underneath and just use it as a guideline. So yeah, from this point on, I'm gonna show you a clip of me drawing. I've already recorded it. You'll see all these points that I just mentioned. I'm gonna apply them to the best of my abilities. So yeah, see you guys there.